It's time for another Dice Tower review with Z. Garcia.
Hey everybody, today I'm taking a look at Evolution: The Beginning. This one is a game set in the same universe as the Evolution line of games, but this is an introductory style game. It's a game that's been simplified from the Evolution system. It's been sort of boiled down to some essentials. Some things have been changed to make it a game that will work well for a much more entry-level style experience. You know, you can play with families, play with parents and kids together, that sort of thing. So, does it work well? Is the game a good game? Let's take a look and we'll find out. So here's everything that comes with the game. You get your rule book, your handy dandy cheat sheet, deck of cards, several of these baggies, one per player, which are very nice, the watering hole in the game, and then all of these tokens, which are the food tokens. You are going to give each player one of these little bags. They're going to keep their food tokens in that bag. And then you will shuffle up the deck. You're ready to begin. Each player on their turn is going to go through several different phases. So at the beginning, you are going to, during the first phase, you're going to give yourself a new species at a level 1. And you are going to add 2 food to the watering hole. And you are going to draw 3 cards. That's the very first thing. What you're attempting to do in the game, by the way, is have the most points, of course, and those are going to come from every card on the table will be 1 point, every card in your hand will be 1 point, and every food token in your little food token bag will be 1 point. All right? So that's it for the first phase. Now I will play cards, and when I play cards, I can do one of several things with them. I can start another species, a brand new species over here. I set it aside from the other one. I can grow a species, so there is a larger population of the same species, or I can play a card to a species as a trait. So for example, I can have whatever this critter is, now can fly. So now they have flight, okay? And so those are my 3 options. And I can use up all my cards. I can save whichever ones I want to. That's all up to me. Once that's done, so let's say I played flight here and I gave this species another population. Once that's done, then they are going to feed. Everything I have is going to feed. And so I could take the food here from the watering hole. Every one of these cards can hold 1 food. I would give them each their food, and then that food during the last phase, the fourth phase, is going to go in my bag, so I can score it at the end of the game. And it is now the next player's turn where they do all 4 of those things. Put out a new species, food, new cards, play cards after that, eat after that, clean up after that. Okay? During cleanup, if something was not able to eat completely or eat at all, so let's say this species here only was able to eat 1 food, then anything that could not be fed perishes. And so this population here would go away because it did not eat enough food to support that large of a population. Or sometimes you'll even have the case where a species does not eat at all, and so it just dies off. These cards would be discarded, the population cards, and then for every trait that you get rid of because something died off, you draw 1 replacement card, okay? So that's how that operates. And these cards do several different things. Many of them are new ways to feed, opportunistic ways to feed. Some of them are carnivores, which sort of changes how the species feeds. Many of them are ways to get around being the prey of carnivores. And there are a couple of other different things, okay? So that's how that works. It would now be the next player's turn. They would do everything and come back to me. 2 food on here, 1 new species at level 1, 3 new cards, and so on. Let me find here 1 carnivore card so I can show you how that works. So let's say I make that species there a carnivore. I am going to give them 1 more population. And let's say that my opponent had a species themselves that they had started last round. It looks like that. It has no traits above it, okay? When it comes time for me to feed, I'm going to eat these two from the watering hole. But this is for an herbivore, so it's going to go right here. And the carnivore says it cannot eat from the watering hole. It has to attack and eat another species. And so sometimes even yours, that's possible. So I'm going to attack that species there. It does not have any trait that would negate me attacking it. If it had flight, for example, I could not attack it. I myself would need flight. If it had speed, I could not attack it. I myself would need speed. But it does not, and so I'm going to attack it. I would reduce it by 1 population, and I would eat 2. Every time you attack another species, you get 2 food, and that comes from these extras, the ones that are not on the watering hole. This is going to continue with ebbs and flows of cards, of species. Sometimes you'll have several, sometimes they'll really dwindle down to 1 or 2. But every round goes the same until you run through all the cards here. Once the deck has been consumed, then you are going to shuffle it up just so that everyone has the same number of turns. And then you count up. As I said, every card on the table and in your hand is 1 point. And the food that you have eaten and put in the bag is also 1 point. And in it, I'm going to give you a closer look here at some of the cards, just so you see what's in the deck, especially if you are comparing this to the original evolution, which this is not. So we have here some of the defensive traits like speed and flight, and you have defensive horns, which is going to hurt the attacker, and you have nocturnal critters. And so as you can see, these are all gray cards. These are all defensive traits. Besides that, you then have some of these yellow cards, which are other things. These help you survive and thrive, like fertile. And then you have some, or like this one here, fat tissue. You have carnivore, of course, which is going to allow you to attack other species. And then you have some of the traits that are going to help you feed more efficiently, like the long neck that lets you get food from the extra supply here, even before you take anything from the watering hole. Or you have the scavenger here that lets you eat 1 from the excess whenever a carnivore attacks. And so there are several other different cards, but that's the majority of what you are going to see in the game here. Most points at the end of the game is the winner. Evolution in the beginning is a game that knows what it wants to accomplish, and I think achieves that very well. It's a game that is simple in the original, but in really smart ways. What they've streamlined here, what they've done with this box, I think is going to appeal to folks that have not played the original game, folks that are getting into gaming as of now, you know. The big change there is the turn structure, I think. The turn structure in this game is 1 player taking their whole turn, every phase, 4 phases, and then it is the next player's turn. Whereas in the original, all the players went through multiple phases together, sort of. And this I find much more conducive to teaching, and a little bit easier to grasp what you should be doing on your turn. And once you're done, you can just sort of step back and let the other players do what they're going to do. Perhaps it sounds like it's less involved. I just find it to be cleaner for an audience that is not as experienced with these kinds of games, you know. And so I like that a lot. I like that the cards are simpler. I like the graphic design of the whole thing. I think it's got a good flow to it. Now, that's not to say I like everything in the game, okay? I think there's a couple of things that I wish were different. I wish there was more food in the game. The tokens, I find them running out. I don't know if that's a common issue or not. I just wish there were more of them, because it's problematic, you know. I wish that the cards in the game did not revolve so much around the carnivores. There's so many cards that are your carnivore, or this is a card to defuse carnivores. And that makes sense, and I like that aspect a lot. But I wish there was a little bit more in the way of eating creatively, adding food to the watering hole creatively, growing, expanding, that sort of thing. And there's not that many of those, you know. But again, those are nitpicky things. They're minor issues that I have with the game. Overall, I find the game to be a success. I think it's a very well-made product. I think if you have not played Evolution, you like the concept, and you want to try it perhaps in a mixed group, parents and kids, something like that, this is going to work well. It's a smart design. It flows easily, as I said, and I think you're going to enjoy it. So there you have it. That is Evolution, the beginning. Thumbs up from me.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.